Let me say something that will make your banker very uncomfortable. You don't need your own money to buy real estate. You never did that. That idea that you need to save up a big down payment, scrimp for years, live like a monk, and then beg a bank for permission to invest. That's not a wealth building strategy. That's a delay tactic. And the people who benefit from that delay are not you. The banks want you to believe that you need them to give you money before you can get started. The financial advisors want you to believe you need to accumulate more before you invest. Your parents probably told you the same thing because their parents told them. And the school system, it never mentioned any of this at all. Here's the reality. The wealthy have been using other people's money to build real estate portfolios for generations. Not illegally, not unethically, through understanding, deal structure, and financial creativity that nobody in a classroom ever taught you. I bought my first investment property with none of my own money. Zero, not a dollar savings in the deal. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, why it works, and how you can start thinking about doing the same thing, even if right now your bank account looks nothing like an investor's bank account. Stay with me. I want to take you back to the early 1980s. I was in my early 30s, recently out of the Marines, and I was not doing well financially. I had a job selling Xerox machines in Hawaii. It paid okay, not great. I was learning sales, which turned out to be one of the most important educations of my life, but I was not building anything. I was trading my time for a paycheck, just like my poor dad always said to do. Work hard, be loyal, climb the ladder. And I was climbing the ladder, but I kept looking up and asking myself, where does this ladder actually go? My poor dad, my real father, was a brilliant and educated man. He believed deeply that the right career and a steady salary were the foundation of a good life. He believed a house was your biggest asset and a pension was your retirement plan. I loved him, but I watched his financial philosophy play out in real time, and what I saw scared me. He worked his whole career for the government, gave everything he had, and retired into a situation that was much harder than he expected. My rich dad, my friend Mike's father, had a different view entirely. He used to say, Robert, the poor and middle class work for money, the rich have money, work for them. And he didn't just say it, he lived it. I watched him build real estate holdings in Hawaii over the years, and I noticed something. He was almost never using his own cash. He was always using the bank's money, partners' money, creative financing. He was the architect of deals, not the laborer funding them. One afternoon, I sat down with Rich Dad and told him I wanted to get into real estate. I had a little bit saved, not much, maybe a few $1,000s, not enough for a conventional down payment on anything meaningful. I said, Rich Dad, I want to start, but I don't have enough money. He looked at me and said something I never forgot. He said, Robert, that is the wrong problem to solve. Broke people focus on how much money they have. Investors focus on the deal. Find a great deal first. The money will follow a great deal. Money always follows opportunity. I didn't fully believe him at first. That sounded too simple, too convenient. But I started looking. I started learning the market. I started talking to people. And eventually I found a small property in Oregon, a 2-bedroom house that a seller was desperately motivated to move. The seller needed out. He needed speed more than he needed every dollar of equity. And because I had spent months educating myself instead of saving up, I recognized what I was looking at. I structured that deal with almost none of my own money, seller financing on part of it, a small private loan for the rest, no bank involved. The seller got his relief. I got my first asset. That property generated cash flow from the day I closed on it. Not massive cash flow, but real cash flow, monthly income from something I built without waiting years to save a down payment. That was the moment my financial life changed direction. Here's why most people never do what I just described. And I want you to hear this clearly, because it is not about intelligence and it is not about effort. The problem is the program. From the time you were old enough to understand money, you were given one framework for how it works. Earn money from a job, spend less than you earn, save the difference. After enough years of saving, you'll have enough to do something with. And the saving vehicle they recommended was almost always a savings account earning almost nothing, or a retirement account you can't touch for 30 years. That framework was designed for a different era. It was designed for a world with stable inflation, where cash in a savings account actually held its value, where a pension waited for you at the end of a career, where one income could support a family and build equity over time. That world is mostly gone. Today, inflation eats your savings while you sleep. The average savings account interest rate is a fraction of inflation. The 401k system shifts all the investment risk to the employee, while financial institutions collect fees regardless of your results. And real estate, the asset class that has created more millionaires than any other in American history, is supposedly out of reach unless you spend years accumulating a down payment that keeps growing faster than most people can save. And here's what your bank and your financial advisor will never tell you. The requirement that you use your own money for a down payment is not a law of physics. It's a convention, a preference of traditional lenders. There are entire strategies built around acquiring real estate without your own capital. Real estate investors use them every day, legally, effectively, and profitably. My poor dad looked at real estate and said, I can't afford that. He asked, how much does it cost? My rich dad looked at real estate and asked, what is the return? Who will fund this? What does the cash flow look like? He never started with what he had. He started with what the deal offered. That shift from can I afford this to how do I structure this is the shift between the middle class and the investor class. And it starts not with money. It starts in your mind. My rich dad used to draw a simple picture, a circle with arrows, money going in, money going out. He called it cash flow. And he said almost everything in personal finance came down to understanding which direction money was flowing through your life. Most people, he said, have money flowing in from one source, a job, and flowing out to many places. Rent or mortgage, food, car payments, insurance, entertainment, whatever's left over, if anything, sits in a savings account or maybe, and the next month the cycle repeats. He called this the rat race, not as an insult, as an observation. The wheel spins, the work continues, the spending continues, and the asset column, the part of your financial life that could one day generate income without your time, stays empty or grows painfully slowly. Real estate, when you understand it, breaks that cycle. Because real estate done correctly doesn't just hold value, it generates cash flow monthly, reliably, and in many structures you can acquire it using other people's money. Let me explain the three most powerful mechanisms I've used and that investors use constantly. The first is seller financing. When a property owner is motivated to sell, sometimes more motivated to move the asset than to extract every dollar of equity in a single lump sum, they can act as the bank. You negotiate terms directly with the seller. You pay them monthly, like a mortgage, over an agreed period at an agreed interest rate. No traditional bank required. No conventional down payment structure required. The seller gets monthly income. You get the property. If the deal is structured right, the rent from tenants covers the payment to the seller and leaves cash flow for you. The second is OPM, other people's money. Rich Dad called this the single most important concept in investing. Every sophisticated investor uses it. The idea is straightforward. You find a deal that works. You bring the deal, someone else brings the capital. Maybe that's a private lender, a friend with savings earning nothing in a bank, a partner, a hard money lender. They provide funding. You provide the knowledge, the deal sourcing, the management. You split the returns. Think about what that means. A person with no money and great deal finding skills can partner with a person with money and no deal finding skills. Together they can do what neither can do alone. The rich have always understood this. It's why real estate syndications exist. It's why private equity exists. It's why wealthy people are constantly doing deals together. The third is leveraging conventional financing creatively. Even with a traditional bank loan, the down payment can sometimes come from other sources, a seller who contributes to closing costs, a second lien from a private party, a HELOC on another property, gift funds from family structured property. There are legal and legitimate ways to minimize the cash you deploy into any individual deal. Here is the concept that ties all of this together. Rich Dad called it infinite returns. This is the holy grail of real estate investing. If you buy a property using none of your own money, and that property generates positive monthly cash flow after all expenses, what is your return on investment? You cannot calculate it. You have no money in the deal. Any return you receive is infinite return on $0 invested. That is not a fantasy. That is a mathematical reality that plays out in thousands of real estate transactions every year by investors who learn to think about deals the way Rich Dad taught me to think about them. School never taught you this. Your bank doesn't want you to know this. Your financial advisor doesn't work in this world, but it is real, it is legal, and it is how the wealthy have been building generational real estate wealth for as long as real estate has existed. So how do you actually start? Let me give you the 3 steps I believe matter most right now. Step 1, build your financial education before you build your portfolio. I know some of you are thinking, Robert, I'm here to hear how to buy property, not to study, and I understand that. But here's the problem with jumping into deals without education. You can't recognize a good deal if you've never learned what makes a deal good. You can't negotiate seller financing if you don't understand the mechanics. You can't bring a deal to a private lender and earn their confidence if you can't explain the numbers. The investors who lose money in real estate are almost always the ones who went in with enthusiasm and without knowledge. The ones who win are the ones who spent serious time learning before they spent serious money doing. Read everything you can about real estate investing, not motivational content, actual educational content. Learn how to read a cash flow statement, learn cap rates, learn debt service coverage ratios, learn how to analyze the neighborhood for rental demand, learn what motivated sellers look like and why they exist. Rich Dad always said, the more you learn, the more you earn. He wasn't talking about a college degree. He was talking about the specific, practical, financial intelligence that turns opportunities into assets. The one-liner for this step, you cannot buy a deal you cannot recognize. Step 2, find the deal before you find the money. This is the counterintuitive move that separates investors from wishful thinkers. Most people say, I'll start investing when I have enough money saved up. Investors say, let me find a great deal, then I'll figure out how to fund it. Here's why this works. A genuinely great deal, a property with strong cash flow potential, a motivated seller with flexible terms, a below-market acquisition with clear value-add upside attracts money. Private lenders, partners, and even traditional banks are dramatically more willing to engage when the deal itself is compelling. If you bring someone a deal that clearly makes financial sense, where the numbers show positive cash flow, where the risk is manageable and the upside is real, you will find people willing to fund it. Not every time, not on your first try, but consistently over time, the deal creates the funding opportunity. Start spending time in your target market. Drive neighborhoods. Talk to real estate agents who specialize in investment properties. Look at listings and practice analyzing them. Even before you're ready to buy, you're building your deal recognition muscle. When the right deal comes, you'll recognize it, and then you go find the money. The one-liner, the deal is the asset, and the money follows assets. Step 3, build your team and your reputation simultaneously. Real estate is a relationship business. The investors who scale fastest are not the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the best networks. A real estate attorney who understands creative deal structures, a CPA who knows how to maximize the tax advantages of real estate, a property manager who runs rentals efficiently, a contractor you trust for renovations, a private lender who knows your track record and will fund your next deal because your last one delivered. None of this happens overnight, but every step of the education process, every deal analysis you share, every conversation you have with experienced investors is building your reputation as someone who is serious and credible. When you eventually bring a deal to a private lender or a potential partner, your reputation is your collateral. Rich Dad always told me your network is your net worth, not your savings account balance, not your credit score, who you know and who trusts you to execute. The one-liner, your team multiplies what you can do alone by a factor of 10. I want to talk directly to the part of you that is skeptical right now, because I hear it, Robert, this sounds good, but it sounds complicated. I don't know any private lenders. I don't know how to find motivated sellers. I have a job and a family, and I don't have time for this. I hear all of that, and I'm going to push back on it respectfully but directly. You have time. The average American watches several hours of television a day. I'm not judging that. But if even one of those hours went toward financial education, toward learning the mechanics of real estate, toward building a basic understanding of deal analysis, within a year you would know more about creating wealth than most people ever learn. You don't need perfect conditions to start. You need a decision followed by consistent small actions. Rich Dad never told me to wait until I was ready. He told me to start learning and start looking. The readiness comes from doing, not from waiting until you feel prepared. Now, let me challenge something deeper. The reason most people don't pursue investing, even when they want to, even when they've read the books and watched the videos, is fear. Fear of getting it wrong. Fear of losing money. Fear of looking foolish if a deal doesn't work out. My poor dad's philosophy around money was built on fear. He saved money because he was afraid of not having it. He stayed in his job because he was afraid of the uncertainty outside it. He avoided investment risk because he was afraid of loss. My rich dad's philosophy was built on respect for risk, combined with the education to manage it. He didn't pretend risk wasn't real. He got educated enough to evaluate it clearly, structure deals to minimize it, and act anyway. The middle class avoids risk and still loses. They lose to inflation. They lose to stagnant wages. They lose to the slow erosion of a financial plan that was never designed to make them free. You can be afraid and still act. The action, educated action, is what creates the outcome. The fear is just noise. And here's the honest truth. Your first deal probably won't be perfect. Mine wasn't. I made mistakes. I learned from every one of them. The investors who succeed aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who treat every deal, successful or not, as education that makes the next deal better. Stop waiting for zero risk. Start building zero of my own money thinking. I want to be honest with you about the moment we're in right now. Real estate has always been a wealth builder, but the conditions of the current economy make the conversation more urgent than ever. Inflation has been running at levels most people under 50 have never experienced before in their adult lives. The purchasing power of cash savings is declining in real terms every single year. A dollar sitting in your savings account is worth less today than it was a year ago, and it will be worth less a year from now than it is today. Meanwhile, real assets, real estate businesses, hard assets, have historically preserved and grown wealth through inflationary periods. The people who owned things during the inflation of the 1970s came out ahead. The people who held cash came out behind. I'm not saying this to create panic. I'm saying it because the numbers are real and the implications for your financial strategy are real. Cash is not safety right now. Cash is a slow loss. Assets are protection. There's something else happening that I believe is the biggest economic disruption of my lifetime, and I've lived through a few. Artificial intelligence is not a future threat to jobs. It is a current and accelerating reality. The jobs being displaced are not just factory work. They are knowledge work, analysis, writing, legal research, financial modeling, customer service. The jobs that two generations of parents told their children to aspire to are being automated at a pace that is not slowing down. The people who will be insulated from that disruption are the people who own income-generating assets, not just the people who do skilled work. The people who own something. The window to build that ownership is not indefinitely open. Interest rate cycles change, market conditions shift. The strategies that work in one environment need adaptation in another. The time to learn, to build your team, to start finding deals and building your financial intelligence is now, before the next cycle turns, before inflation takes more, before the job market looks even less stable than it does today. The rich are always preparing for the next move. The middle class is always reacting to the last one. Which side of that line do you want to be on? Here's what I need you to hear before you close this video. You do not need your own money to start building real estate wealth. What you need is the education to recognize a deal, the relationship to find funding, and the decision to stop waiting for perfect conditions that will never come. The rich use other people's money. They always have. That's not a secret of the ultra wealthy anymore. That's a strategy available to anyone willing to learn it, respect it, and apply it with discipline. Here's the one thing I want you to do today. Not next week, today. Take 1 hour and look at 3 investment properties in a market you're familiar with. Don't look at them as a buyer, look at them as an analyst. What do the rents look like? What are the expenses? What does the cash flow say? You're not buying anything today. You're building your eye. You're training the part of your brain that recognizes opportunity. That's where every investor starts. And remember what Rich Dad told me on that apartment floor in Hawaii when I had nothing? Robert, it's not about the money you have. It's about the deals you find and the knowledge you carry. That knowledge is yours to build starting right now. If this video changed how you think about real estate, watch this next video right here, because we go even deeper on how to structure your first deal and find your first private lender. That conversation could be the one that starts everything. Let's go build something